to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmembers Galloway?
Here.
Martin?
Here.
Piana?
Yes, here.
Lennon?
Yes.
Mayor Coulter?
Here, thank you. We have a quorum. In fact, we have a full house tonight. The next item of business would be the approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda this evening?
I move to adopt the agenda as submitted, Jeff. Support?
Moved by Lennon, supported by Galloway. Any discussion? Madam Clerk?
Councilmembers Galloway?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Piana?
Yes.
Lennon?
Yes.
Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you. The agenda is adopted. We have two presentations this evening. The first one is from the Ferndale Public Schools, and I see Stephanie Hall here from the Public Schools. Good evening.
See you all.
Good to see you.
I've just come from a meeting of the Eagles Pledge, which is an organization that raises funds to help support our students getting to college. They are having the Dodgeball Showdown rematch on November 1st. Last year, it was a very well-attended event. We had about 400 people there, and the organizer, Bob Greger, is aiming for 1,000 this year. I told him I would come here and tell you about that, and I was asked to say this. I'm going to get myself in trouble, but he said, they wanted me to tell you that I heard at the meeting that the police department and the fire department will be playing against each other, and that the fire department is not remotely concerned about Chief Collins and his bobbies. And I know I'll pay for that, but it's all in good fun. November 1st, hope to see you all there.
Excellent. What time?
It's 6:30.
Thank you.
At Ferndale High School's gym. Some of the other things that are going on, we are in the season of kindergarten roundup for next year. It's time for parents of 4-year-olds to start planning for kindergarten. And we start weekly tours of our elementary buildings at the end of this month, October 24th. They're always on Wednesdays, every other Wednesday. They can tour either Roosevelt or Kennedy. And that is to learn about both our lottery and non-lottery programs. But parents who want to be part of the lottery, which is for open classroom held at both Roosevelt and Kennedy, need to do all of that before February 28th. That's our annual deadline, so we start the tours in the fall. So we're starting to spread the word on that and hope that we see a lot of young families at those. We've got a couple fundraisers coming up. There's a new fundraiser for the soccer boosters called Socktoberfest, where they've coordinated with downtown Ferndale, and they're going to have a pub crawl. That is Saturday, October 13th. From 6 to 10, it's $15, age 21 and over. There is an all-district fall festival. I know there's the Hilton Festival this weekend. The following weekend, we have an annual event that is sponsored by Kennedy Schools PTA at Kennedy, and it is for the whole community, but geared toward young children. They have things, they have animals come in, and they have rides to ride and face painting and things like that, and that's from 11 to 3 on the 20th at Kennedy School. We have a new organization that's being formed within the Ferndale Career Center. This is for anyone who's looking for a new job or to move to a different kind of a job. They've created the Career Club, and it's going to be meeting at various libraries in the region over the next several months. They start in this month, 4th Tuesdays at the Ferndale Library, and some of the topics they'll be talking about are free agency, personal branding, and this is a term new to me, entrepreneurial skills. So entrepreneurial, but about yourself. And the coordinator is Gerard Balstrusadis, who is our new coordinator of workshops at the Career Center. And he's very energized, and it's going to be very, very cool. So that's 6:30 to 8:30, 4th Thursdays at the Ferndale Library. The last thing is that the Ferndale Marching Band is doing very well in their season, and everyone in the whole community usually comes out for the State Marching Band Championships. That is Saturday, November 3rd at Ford Field. We don't know the time yet. They'll announce that closer, and we'll put that on our Facebook and everything like that. So the last thing I'm going to say is that if you're not following us on Facebook, we keep the community up to date on what's coming along, especially things like that that might be breaking news. So please follow us on Facebook.
Great.
Thank you.
Any questions of Stephanie? We lost a tough homecoming game, correct?
Yes, they were Yes. Dropped the ball, but it was a good game anyway.
Yeah, okay. Well, thanks for coming by.
All right,
Appreciate
thank
all
you.
the information. Our next presentation are members of the International Association of Firefighters Local 812, and I think those are the guys in the back with the special shirts on. So, gentlemen, why don't you come up and tell us what's going on?
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
My name is Gary McMenamin, Ferndale Firefighters Local 812. John Schwal, Secretary of the Executive Board. And tonight we're here to talk to you about Breast Cancer Awareness Month. It's something that the International Association of Firefighters have adopted as one of the charities that means something very close to us. 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer in their lifetime. And in the next year or so, they said that possibly 32.5 million women could be diagnosed with breast cancer worldwide. And I don't know if you've seen recently in the news, but geneticists are getting closer to dealing with breast cancer and ways to treat it by finishing the genetic mapping. But they still need more support. And we're here tonight as firefighters to let you know that for the next 2 weeks, the firefighters working with Chief Sullivan, we will be wearing pink T-shirts on duty for the next 2 weeks. We'll also be selling the exact same shirt to the community at a donation of $20, which can be purchased at either fire station or at City Hall. The shirts are just like this. Jen, did you bring the...
So similar shirts, not the same shirts you're wearing to work.
No, it is
The shirt off your back, really? All right.
I'll you a new one.
No.
Game one.
Oh, well, you know what?
Here,
If somebody's willing to give us the money, we'll sell the shirts off our backs. So, but it's
That's great.
right. And again, you can find them at either station. This is
Here at City
something-
Hall or at the station, either
Either
station.
And this is a nationwide effort on the part of the IAFF to bring awareness to breast cancer and to work toward finding a cure. And we hope that the community will join us on October 22nd, where we're going to ask that everybody who bought a shirt wear the shirt on that day as a show of support.
Yeah, that's great. Wonderful. Anybody have questions?
Thank you very much.
Awesome charity. Thanks for all the good work. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. So $20, come to City Hall or one of the fire stations from now till October 22nd.
Which happens to be a council night.
Well, it sounds like an idea.
Plan for all of us.
Next item of business would be call to audience. Call to audience is up to 30 minutes now and more time needed after the regular agenda, if needed, to talk about anything that is not on the agenda, because we'll let you have a chance to talk about that when we get to that point in the agenda. So 3 minutes for anyone in the audience to speak about any issue on their mind. Give us your name, your address, and tell us what's on your mind.
Hi, good evening. Good evening. Ann Heller, 1024 Leroy, and at this moment speaking as proud president of FernCare. I have a very, very nice thing to do. First off is that I have to give a shout out to Credit Union One. Credit Union One has won the Dora Maxwell Award. It received the great news that they were selected as first place winner of the 2012 Dora Maxwell Award for the state of Michigan and will be in the running for an award at the national level. This is the Dora Maxwell is the Social Responsibility Community Service Award and was created in 1987 and recognizes credit unions for the activities they coordinate that benefit the community or a specific charity. This award promotes social responsibility and action to support organizations not related to membership. And I want to say, obviously, congratulations to our landlord, to Credit Union One, and also because the project that they picked, the presentation they chose to do was FernCare. And so they came over, photographed did some things with it, and as you can see, we're on our way to national, and Credit Union One is on their way to national. And they are just grand, and I absolutely wanted to make sure that everybody knew what they were doing in the community. Because they're wonderful, they're wonderful. And then second of all, I haven't been up here for so long. I know, to see you all. Second of all, we have a fundraiser coming up October 18, and we're leaving Ferndale for this one. We're going to go to Clawson, we're going to go to Leon and Lulu. For this, it's going to be 5 to 8, $15 at the door or on PayPal. And besides the shop of Leon and Lulu, and if you haven't been there, it's worth just going. And for some of us that have as much white hair as this, it's the old Ambassador skating rink that they have turned into a store. And we're going to do a wine tasting. And Keith Dalton is going to play some wonderful things. And of course, shop, that would be just grand. And we would love to see you there. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Happy belated.
Oh, thank you very much.
This is a big one.
49 again.
Ah, bless your heart. Yes, I am. I'm still working.
Energy of 30.
You're very kind. You are very kind. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Ann. Anyone else like to address council this evening? Chris Hughes. I had to put you in presentations.
No, I'm just here to remind everybody that, and I don't mean to compete with Fern Care, but on October 18th, downtown Ferndale is going to go to the dogs. Fido Does Ferndale will be a very furry tale evening, and we invite everybody to come down with their dogs. There'll be plenty of dog vendors and all kinds of doggone good fun. So just come on down. Details at downtownferndale.com or Fido Does Ferndale on Facebook. That's all. Thanks.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. Anyone else? Or for a second time?
For a second time. But this time coming as Ann Heller, 1024 Leroy, as just a citizen of Ferndale, not connected to Fern Care. Just saying, once again, everybody is surprised. There's going to be election November 2, and I'm quite concerned about the school board election. We need to take serious look at that. It's my feeling that there's 4 people that might bring something new to the table. Kevin Deegan Krause, Jim O'Donnell, and Amy Butlers and Raylan Leaks-May. What I like about them, or what I would like people to think about, is they all have children in school right at this moment. They're all really critically aware of what happens when people pull children out of the district, and why in the world that happens and what it does to the district and things like that. And they're very interested in talking about that. And then with right here, because I don't have children in the district, they're also aware of what it does for people who perhaps don't have children but are thinking about property values, who are thinking about maybe looking at things a different way because public education in the state is needing to look at things a different way now. So just something for people to think about. Please do your research on that. It is important. We must have an active, vibrant school board. Thank you.
Thanks again, Ann. All right. Seeing no one else for call to audience, we'll move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda is items that council considers routine and we enact in one motion unless someone would like to pull one of those items for further discussion. So let me read the consent agenda this evening. Item A is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting held September 24th, 2012, and the special meeting held October 2nd, 2012. B is the approval of the HVAC service agreement with Siemens and the Ferndale Activity Center Curling Club, and to charge the city's share of the expense, $5,245.50, to the Public Services Repair and Maintenance account. C, approval of a $75,000 expense increase to the street pavements repairs contract with the Hartwell Cement Company. They're at 21650 Fern in Oak Park. D is the approval of Acumed invoice number 1305 for $4,087.52, which includes the $4,042.65 for the Acumed Web annual support, and that's as submitted by the fire chief. E is the approval of the changes as presented to the Articles of Incorporation for SACRA, pending approval by the remaining member communities, as submitted by our city manager. Approval of a special event permit for the Holiday Ice Festival and Winterfest Market on December 7th, 8th, and 9th, as detailed in the Special Event Director's summary to reflect the consensus of the Special Events Committee, contingent upon the noted stipulations. And finally, G, approval of the bills and payroll as submitted by the City Manager's Office, subject to the review of the Council Finance Committee. Are there any questions about the consent agenda this evening? First of all, anyone from the public that has a comment on the consent agenda this evening?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
Moved by Piana, supported by Martin. Any discussion on any of these items? I would just note that the director, is that your title, Jeff? General Manager, excuse me, of SACRA and the General Counsel are here in case we had questions. I don't think we did, but appreciate seeing you guys here. Thanks for coming out. If not, Madam Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Councilmembers Martin,
Yes.
Piana,
Yes.
Lennon,
Yes.
Galloway,
Yes.
Mayor Coulter.
Yes, thank you. The consent agenda is adopted. Moving on to the regular agenda, item A, consideration of appointment for the DDA meetings. Dan, do you want, or April, do you want to introduce this item?
As we are aware, the city, the mayor is one of the appointees to the DDA board, and I know the mayor is having a difficult time getting to the meetings, and not always, but sometimes, and we're looking at an alternate to be able to represent him at the DDA meetings on a more regular basis. And with that, I believe, did we already select that?
Yeah.
Okay. And I believe after conversation, Councilmember Martin has agreed to fill that position at times when the mayor cannot attend any DDA meetings, and Councilmember Martin would then take his place.
Dan.
Just a little bit more on that issue. The process under the charter, Your Honor, and Council would be that in your absence or disability, and in the event that the Mayor Pro Tem also is under an absence or disability from being able to attend, then Councilmember Martin would, as proposed, be the designated council representative to that board.
Right. Yes, and I appreciate it because their meetings are in the morning, and with my other job, it is more difficult for me to make those meetings. I try to make as many as I can, but it's good that the city is represented there, and so I appreciate Councilman Martin's willingness to attend in my absence when I can't be there. So that's
my pleasure.
Yep, appreciate that very much. Our relationship with the DDA is very important to us, and so I appreciate Councilman Martin's willingness to do that. Are there any questions about this item?
I move to appoint Councilmember Martin as a temporary alternate for the remainder of 2012 and 2013 to attend any DD meetings on behalf of the mayor. Should I include Mayor Pro Tem in that too?
Yeah, as set forth.
And Mayor Pro Tem in those circumstances when the mayor or Mayor Pro Tem is absent under disability, and there is also an absence of disability precluding the Mayor Pro Tem from attending such DDA meetings. Something like that.
Moved by Lennon.
Support.
Supported by Galloway. Any comments on that item? Madam Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Councilmembers Piana,
Yes.
Lennon,
Yes.
Galloway,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Mayor Coulter.
Yes, thank you. That item is adopted. Regular agenda item B, consideration of Spyglass Telecommunications audit invoice. And April, you want to take that one?
I'm going to just start it and actually turn it back over to Joe Gaucho. He's going to talk a little bit about, a few months ago, he came forward to council with a proposal to work with a company called Spyglass to take a look and audit our phone system and our phone contracts, and in the end, with the hope of money savings. And so this is phase one, of which we have found some significant savings, and he's going to talk a little bit about that and where we're going next with this audit.
Mayor and City Council.
Thanks, Joe.
We began this telecommunications audit back in around July, early June, July. And the telecommunications audit has three phases. This first one that we'll be addressing today is the service elimination modification recommendations. The second one would be the contract renewal recommendations, and the third one would be awarding of credits for overpayments and erroneous fees that Spyglass has found that the city's overpaid for the past year. The summary of findings that were presented to us most recently consist of two major components, the service elimination and long-distance transfer. The service elimination involved the removal of 6 unused phone lines that were costing the city at a monthly rate of $46.09. So that gave us an annual savings of $553.08. The more significant item of savings was the long-distance transfer. Council did approve us transferring the long distance from AT&T to CenturyLink in early August. This actually will project to monthly savings of $956.80 and accrue an annual savings of $11,481.60. The first invoice that has been put forth is structured by Spyglass in a way that the city has agreed to pay the consultant a fee that is 6 times any savings that result from the surface elimination or modification actions. This is a one-time payment, so it's really a forward projection of the payments we would have been paying anyway for the next 6 months. All savings after that 6-month period are realized by the city and retained by the city. So for this current year, the city will pay Spyglass out per our contract $6,017 for the savings found. The savings retained for this current year are a match $6,017, and for future savings, we will realize moving forward $12,000.34, give or take. The Phase 2 and Phase 3 of the telecommunications audit will be coming up within the next 2 months. Phase 2 will address the savings associated with renewing of 6 costly out-of-contract point-to-point lines. Those lines are the points of service to connect our buildings, allowing us to transfer lines and transfer communication and data to each other. Phase 3 then will also be presented with that same phase, and that will be an itemized list of credits that Spyglass was able to obtain for us that will be getting reissued back to us. Are there any questions on the invoice or on?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I need you to walk me through the savings again. So by spending the $6,000, how much are we saving?
Annually, moving forward, we'll be saving double that, so $12,034. That's what we were.
So for a one-time payment of $6,000, this is going to earn us $12,000 in savings annually.
Yes, forward. And the payment is technically what we were paying anyway.
Right.
Moving forward from now. So Spyglass captures 6 months of those projected savings, and then for the rest of the 6 months of the year, we actually will retain that and then moving forward.
And this doesn't have any impact on Phase 2 or Phase 3, right? This is just a payment for the savings accrued in Phase 1.
That is correct. This is just for this first phase, which is elimination and modification of services. The modification being the transfer of long distance.
How often do we have to, or should we do this type of audit? With my law firm, we do this every year, every 18 months.
Most telecommunication contracts are for a term of 3 years. So in my research prior to doing this, it is becoming best practice to have a telecommunications contract review every three years. Now we, as a product of this study, we look to incorporate some contract management procedures moving on in future practices. The good thing about the CenturyLink contract is that, well, it's not a contract. We've captured the state's My Deal, so we won't have that issue of potentially running out of contract and being susceptible to rack rates. May I answer any other questions?
Will you use Spyglass for the Phase 2 and Phase 3?
Yes, they do oversee all phases.
And you were satisfied with?
Yes, I've been very satisfied.
Yeah.
They've been very attentive.
Is this?
So, I mean, we should calendar this somehow so that we're, looking back at it. We have a number of contracts currently that are out of, well, a number of plans that are currently out of contract. I understand we're paying higher rates than we would have had we just renewed the contract or gone to something else. My guess is that, perhaps Spyglass will remind us when the time's up, but if not, we should somehow have it calendared within the city to, somebody should monitor the dates of our contracts.
We are looking to see if there's a contract management potential with our financial software, as well as moving contracts that you approve to the agenda tracker for future tracking.
Great.
This wasn't our first assessment of our phone bills. I believe the city did something in 2004-05 under Tom Barwin.
I believe so.
So it's been a while.
So one of the goals when we're done with this is that there is institutional knowledge of making sure that we don't have to go back and try to, we're very fortunate right now that we get to go back for some part of it to get some of that money back. But we definitely, part of the end game is to have a control mechanism that no matter who is here, that gets remembered and that we know when those contracts are up.
Because CenturyLink is a vendor through MML, is that what I read, correct? They're
State of Michigan.
The state of Michigan. Does that mean they help the city find savings versus AT&T, who really didn't tell you what savings could be had?
Under the My Deal pricing, it's really, we just gain from the state's ability to capture the low cost, the low fee. That's really what we do. We just piggyback off the state's low fee.
All right.
But it's guaranteed as long as the state has it, we have it, and the state has had CenturyLink for 15 years.
Okay. I've never heard of CenturyLink before as a service provider, so I had to do a little
And
research.
so then
on them.
Spyglass is the one that's been telling us, where to go with the next steps and where to change, and recommended the CenturyLink as well. So they've been incredibly helpful and incredibly aggressive with AT&T, which has been necessary. It took Joe 6 weeks to track down who our rep was.
So, yeah. Better service too?
Yep. We're hoping.
Is there a motion on this item?
I would move to approve the payment of $6,017.34 to Spyglass for the successful implementation of forward-looking service elimination and cost reduction savings charged to Central Services Contractual Services account number 101-940-818.
Support.
Moved by Martin, supported by Piana. Any last questions or comments? $12,000 is significant savings, so appreciate your work on this and look forward to phase 2 and 3. Thanks, Joe. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Councilmembers Piana.
Yes.
Lennon.
Yes.
Galloway.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Mayor Coulter.
Yes, thank you. The item is adopted. Regular agenda item C is the consideration of ordinance number 1134 to amend Chapter 9 of the Fire Prevention and Protection to add Article 4, open burning. And I believe Fire Chief Sullivan is here to introduce that item.
Mr. Mayor, Council, before you we have a ordinance revision that we've looked at quite seriously, and apparently is stirring up some stuff. But there have been many complaints over burning in backyards over the years, and it's become a point at which many people would like to do it, and currently it is not permitted open burning in the city of Ferndale unless it comes to council. We found there was an adjustment. So what I told the city manager earlier was we used to give the permits out, and now it has to come to council for permission to burn. So we're looking at doing this in lieu of bringing more constraints to control it, but allowing those who would like to do it. I believe everything in this ordinance has covered many questions people had and concerns. It's even addressed in there. Dan did a great job of putting this together on the legalese end of it. We just did the operational technical stuff. And I believe we got a point where we can keep everybody fairly happy, although there are some people who feel that there's going to be wild, crazy burning. That's not going to be the case. We actually have the ability to pull the permit and have more enforceability with it than we have under the current thing. Under the current thing, fire marshal can write a ticket. Under this ordinance, we'll be able to have, well, and a police officer could write a ticket also. But we'll be able to write citations should they, or just pull the permit. And then we can write citations going up the ladder, and then it can end in, go from civil infraction to misdemeanor infraction. So the weight of enforcement is stronger on this in this phase. I believe that this is going to help us overall, because there are many people who would like to burn, and there are many people who burn anyway. And my comment that was misconstrued in the paper was not that we should just let people do things illegally, but there is a desire to do this, and there is a safe and legal way to do it, where I think we can meet the needs of everyone without offending. So that's what we're bringing before you tonight. I brought Brian for technical questions if you have any.
Are there technical questions at this point? Otherwise, we need a motion. But go ahead, Mary.
Can you explain the difference between open burning, outdoor burning, and patio wood burning? The three definitions that are in the ordinance. Can you kind of explain the difference for people?
That might be a Dan question.
Okay.
Actually.
It might go to Dan. I
Really,
didn't define
open burning is defined as a fire which produces the product's combustion emitted directly into the air without going through a stack or a chimney. So that would consist under the definitions of perhaps a campfire, which is limited in size and scope to not more than 4 feet in diameter. Outdoor burning includes also a patio wood-burning unit, which is what a number of people would see. There's items called chimeneas, which actually go through a small stack. So that would be a patio wood-burning unit. And then outdoor burning includes both of them, both the open burning and the patio wood-burning units.
Thank you.
It's really just a difference in devices. I had to read it first, sorry.
How do we define being a nuisance to your neighbor?
That is not a defined term, so that would fall back to a reasonable interpretation to a common person as to what constitutes a nuisance. And certainly, Councilmember, that area is an issue which that is an area that I grappled with respect to the drafting of the ordinance and attempted to incorporate in the draft dimensional distances where the particular device could be set to try and minimize any type of impact on a neighbor. But that is an issue that will likely result apparently over time in some people suggesting that a fire constitutes a nuisance. The provision with respect to what can be burned and not only clean wood being burned and not any type of treated wood should hopefully reduce smoke that might aggravate or irritate a neighbor.
Well, I guess I'm thinking of a situation. I had a case where I had a client who worked in a medical facility that had zero tolerance. They wouldn't hire people who had cigarette smoke. And we had a heavy smoker in the apartment beneath her, and the cigarette smoke got into the HVAC system, and, you know, from my impression, gave her clothes a slight smell of cigarette smoke. It wasn't heavy or anything. I could imagine a similar situation here. What if someone had zero tolerance for smoke in their house? Can they claim a nuisance?
Well, under the term, I think the court would interpret it as to what a reasonable person views as constituting a nuisance. So I'm not sure if a zero threshold would, in the district court, would suffice, but rather what a reasonable person would interpret as constituting a nuisance.
So if we had a family that had an asthmatic child and they didn't have the money to pay for air conditioning, had to sleep with the windows open, but the person next door only had the occasional fire, but that sent the kid to the hospital every time, that could be a situation where that would be a reasonable, that wouldn't create a nuisance.
I would say from the fire department, we would enforce the shutting down of that fire. If we're triggering an actual response of people, and the people responding to it from the fire department are going to be medics as well as firefighters, so they will be able to tell that there is due cause and this person's health has changed. And if that's the case, the whole idea of this is to make it safe and healthy for everyone without infringing on people's rights to do it. It would not be to trigger asthmatic children. And I think there is a way, when you look at lot sizes and that, I think in the pre-planning of putting these things in when they get a permit, making sure it's in the right location and watching things. We'll have information sheets also to warn them about windy days. It's not a good day. That's not a good day to burn. Things that would just be common sense, but maybe not practiced regularly.
As a practical matter, right now, with the zero tolerance for fires in the backyard, if we see smoke arising out of someone's backyard, we know to call the fire department. How are we going to know when to call the fire department when 25 people in the city that we don't know have backyard burn permits?
If they're not sure, they should give us a call, but we'll have a database at the desk where we can track who does have permits and that. And we'll still send a truck out, no lights and sirens, just to make sure it is their fire. But if we arrive and it's other issues, then obviously we can call in more help. But I believe that in this case that if they're not sure, they just call us. We get called on these things quite substantially. I don't know what the exact number is, but we're called to them. And typically, we don't do any enforcement. We just take their garden hose and put their fire out. So that happens on a regular basis.
The current definition of open burning doesn't preclude all open burning either. It precludes burning where it does not prohibit it where there's non-ash producing fuels being used. It's only where ash producing fuels are being used.
I mean, do you have any concerns about the demands on the fire department if we have hundreds of these permits and then people start calling the police or the fire department every time they see smoke in the backyard and you having to send a guy out there for 90% false alarms?
As I said, Councilman, we're running on them fairly frequently. I would assume that we might have a spike in this when we start out, but I think once we educate the public and get people to understand what this is all about and how to do it correctly, upon you approving it, if you should choose to approve it tonight, I think that the education part and the enforcement part will tailor this into a more cooperative neighborhood thing. I don't believe it's going to be that big of a deal for our crews to go out and check real quick and see if it's in compliance or not. And we'll have to train them on the facts of what this is and what they're going to look for. Yeah, we'll probably have a spike in it over the normal if it should be approved, but I don't think it would be that big of a burden. As I said, we're going out on it. Actually, hopefully in the future, is a thought of ours that it might reduce because we'll be able to look at a list and tell who has them and make sure they are doing it correctly. We've had things like couches and chairs, like a college football prep party. So we're talking a bonfire. It looked like a garage was on fire. We've had people burn some quite spectacular things in their backyard. So I believe that this will help us control some of those things. It's illegal, as we said, but there's many people who enjoy sitting around a small fire in the backyard. And the pits are 3 foot in diameter or smaller. The chimneys are usually around 2 foot in diameter.
And were the 20 and 15-foot distances developed for fire safety or to minimize smoke intrusion into other people's households?
Both.
Do we have any idea how many houses would automatically be eliminated from having a backyard fire just based upon these?
No, sir.
And one concern would be, I think this cuts both ways, but people with smaller lots are per se going to not be able to have these when perhaps people with the 50 and 60-foot lots are going to very easily be able to.
Maybe they could make friends with the people.
With the people next door,
right? We would not issue a permit if they cannot meet the safety constraints of the ordinance.
May I ask where the $25 permit fee came from? How did you develop that?
Just looked at potential costs for, so there'd be no burden on us for printing materials, educational materials, and we're going to be sending people out to inspect these things right off the bat until we get the system down. So that we could revisit that later. It might not necessarily, that might be too steep.
Chief, did you look at, or you, Dan, yourself, at Beverly Hills and Oak Park and Hazel Park's ordinance? From what I understand,
I looked at a number of ordinances.
Okay.
I don't recall whether I specifically looked at those two jurisdictions,
Okay.
but I've looked at dozens of.
The fee is similar, do you know, Chief?
That I don't know. We didn't do it cross.
I understand Beverly Hills has a real good one, and it's almost identical to ours. I think the mayor talked with Beverly Hills today.
I did, and it was interesting because this was a big issue in Beverly Hills apparently a couple of years ago, and they told me that they ended up drafting with a lot of community input what they consider a model open burn ordinance, but when I asked them the essential elements of it, it was the things that are covered in here. So I think that you probably either saw theirs or one that they modeled after, but in terms of the distance and the fire hose requirement and the kinds of things that you can burn, most particularly, especially from a health perspective, cleaning the clean wood and burning the clean wood as opposed to leaves and garbage and treated wood was key. So ours incorporated the elements of theirs. Any other questions? We'll get into, comments and things, but just sort of questions of fact for the chief. And I know we have some people from the public that would like to comment as well.
Well, I just want to clarify the motivation for this whole thing. As I understand it, there's the one principle of a lot of people are doing it anyhow, so we ought to regulate it to get it done correctly. And then the second is just purely entertainment value, right? People love sitting around a campfire.
Yep.
And weighed against that in my calculus is, do we encourage more of this, which perhaps causes greater amount of nuisances or health concerns? Are there any other cons that you can identify to encouraging people to burn in their backyard?
No, but I believe that the major, from a fire protective aspect was people setting things on fire, and that doesn't tend to happen even with people burning currently. So it really is an air quality issue. It really is, and under the federal guidelines and coming down to the DEQ and that, there's really not a lot other than local ordinance that guides it, because you have to be burning tonnage or quite a bit to poison the air, et cetera, et cetera. So this is really a chance for us to open-mindedly look at maybe stricter controls on it in a sense of, if you're going to do it, you got to do it right. And we would look at wood types and that, and firemen know what types of wood. It's very dangerous to burn womanized wood because you get a poisonous gas released from that. So that would be something we'd want to stop regardless of anything. But typically, there are people who would be able to do this responsibly and not irritate people. So
I've gotten some correspondence, and I've seen some posts that suggest the particulate matter released from a small campfire is problematic in a closed setting. Do you have any understanding that may not exactly be your area of expertise, but do you have any thoughts or sources you can point to?
I misunderstood.
Just, the amount of soot and, particulate matter that's released
actually,
from a small campfire?
There was a case leaving the participants out of in the city 10 years ago, or a fire in the backyard, and the people next door didn't like it, so they called and complained, and this gentleman, we'd go put him out, and it kept up, and he got ticketed. And it ended up being where he researched the law, and so he ended up putting 50 candles, the torches, which are legal because they're not ash-producing fuel, which burned like a black smoke. And we were called, as we rolled the corner with the engine, it looked like a tire fire. There was so much black smoke coming off. But that met the legal constraints of the law. He can burn those citronella things to keep the mosquitoes away. So he went from a medium to lightweight smoke campfire of 2 to 3 feet in diameter to 40 torches around, which we had no right to tell him to put out. And I'm not advocating that people handle their neighborhood disputes that way, but one was within the purview of the law currently, and one was not, and it actually ended up getting worse. The whole problem got worse between the two. And so I'm thinking that we're looking at the constraints and the rules right out the get-go. We might eliminate some of these issues, although some people feel it would encourage more, but I don't think that it'll work that way. And we can always revisit and come back, as you know, and strike it if it's that problematic.
Thanks, Chief.
Other sort of questions of fact. I see a couple folks from the audience that would like to address this issue. So, Dennis, why don't you get us started?
Dennis Hebner, 766 Florida, Ferndale. I have my concerns as well those of Charleston, Staten Island. I'm old enough to remember years ago we used to burn leaves in the street. Everybody thought that sweet smell on the fall and burning leaves was great, not realizing the harm it was doing to our lives. Now, my concern is people with chronic breathing problems such as COPD and asthma. Now, I almost lost my wife 3 years ago with a total respiratory collapse. She can't even be near anybody that smokes a cigarette, much less burning wood in the backyard. So that's my concern. Thank you.
Thanks, Dennis. Sherry?
Sherry Wells. We have some residents who are a little bashful about coming up in front of council. So I got the call, had several of us talking about some of this. I did talk to Fire Marshal Ryan Batten, and he clarified some of these things, as did the chief when he was speaking to you. One thing we would want you to put in, the proposed ordinance says clean wood, and we would like to have the word dry, clean, dry wood put in there. I think that would clarify it for some people. We have, in another ordinance, we have something about storing the fire logs outdoors, and the only thing that says, to my recollection, I didn't have time to look at it, is that it has to be up a certain height so that rats don't make a pile of lumber, of wood, their home. But something that would require a cover over there also to keep that wood dry. The wetness is what causes the smoke, some of the smoke that's going to bother the neighbors. Some people burn tree limbs, things that come off their trees, including leaves, and Marshall Batten said that that's waste, brush, and refuse. So those people are going to be told in the information that comes with their permit that that's not allowed. So that will be very good. The patio, my understanding, is a non-attached concrete, stone, brick, or something, grade level thing, and if it's not that, if it's attached in wood and a different level, then it's a wood deck, and that would be a structure, and then the 15 feet and the 25 feet would apply. So that may eliminate some people having the fires because they have so many different structures and stuff in their backyard. So those feet made one of the people I was talking with very happy because that person knows their neighbor does not have that much room back there. We were concerned about the hours. It said as late as 1 in the morning, and the fire pit would normally mean people socializing around it, and 10 p.m. sounds a lot more reasonable than 1 in the morning. Unless someone has a different shift than the most often shift, people are going to be wanting to get to bed by 11:30, and they're going to be wanting to have some wind down time, which they're not going to get till 2 in the morning. And I think those were the issues that haven't already been spoken by the two gentlemen here.
Thank you. Thank you. We're not intimidating. Come on up.
Yeah, Sharon Hinman, 142 Academy.
Hey, Sharon.
I want the ordinance to stay as it is, and I'd like the enforcement stepped up and more tickets written. It is terrible. It's a nuisance. In my neighborhood, it's every night of the week. It's cost me a lot of money this summer to keep my air conditioning on, even on cool nights, because there's just too much smoke, too much smell. It's causing smoke damage to my home, and it is a nuisance. I don't see how a wood fire is not a nuisance. Too close to quarters. Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon. It's your turn.
Hi, Julie and Henry Updike, 250 East Hazelhurst. I've been framing this as the Save the S'mores campaign. I don't think that the majority of people burning fires, at least on our street and in our neighborhood, are doing it to relive the glory days of, like the fire chief said, the frat party where they're celebrating a big football victory. I think that most of them are just an ability to spend some time outside with their families on a nice fall evening and just create some memories. And my motivation for voting yes is to respect the fire department. I just can't see that this is a good use of funding and resources to be sending the fire department out to all of these calls and having them put out fire pits with a garden hose. Like, that's just not, I respect my firemen way too much to, send them out to put out a chimney with a garden hose. And then finally, if I understand that a fire pit does create that smoke essence in the air that makes everyone think of going up north, but if we're really concerned about air quality issues in the city, are we going to ban all cigarette smoking and all pot smoking, which is banned but still comes into my windows most nights anyway? If I really have a problem with my neighbor smoking outside my window, I go outside and say, hey, can you go down to the other side of your house because it's coming in? I don't think that I need to come to council and ask you to tell my neighbor to do something respectful on my behalf. I'm quite capable of asking my neighbor to respect me on my own. So please vote yes. I think that that's the role that the council should play. That's the role that government should play, and I think that we should respect our city resources more than that. Thank you.
Thank you. And what's his name?
Henry.
Thank you, Henry.
Back there.
All right. Anyone else from the public that would like to address this issue? Hearing none. A motion would be in order. And then we can have further conversation.
I move to adopt ordinance number 1134 to amend Chapter 9, Fire Prevention and Protection to add, I don't have it. To add Article 9, open burning, sections 9 through 50 through 9 through 59 to the Ferndale Code of Ordinances as submitted by the fire chief.
Thank you. Is there support?
Support.
Moved by Lennon, supported by Piana. All right, now, any comments?
I just have a couple
questions? Yeah.
comments. One of the, from the audience made, there is an ordinance in place already for elevated wood. So that's already got to be elevated. I know mine is.
Yep.
As far as 1 o'clock in the morning, whether you have a fire or not, you can still sit in your backyard all night. And if you become out of control and you're too loud, the police department will take what necessary action they have to. And wet wood doesn't burn, it smokes, so that creates a nuisance. Therefore, the fire department can shut you down. So if you're burning wet wood, not only you're not too intelligent, there's a problem, okay? Because it's not going to catch. So I don't think this is going to add to any problems. I think this might solve a lot of problems. I think most of our residents are reasonable and intelligent enough to burn good, clean, solid wood, no leaves, no straw, no couches, no chairs. And for that reason, I went back and forth all day long. I know I had conversations with a few people, and but I've changed. I think I'm going to vote yes for this. That's my thoughts.
Thank you, sir. Other comments or thoughts on this item?
Well, I think I was a proponent of having the city look at this ordinance because people were burning illegally considerably, and with the increase in the availability to purchase backyard chimeneas, which 10 years ago, I don't think those products were even available at Home Depot or Lowe's. And now, I think these are just part of being a homeowner almost. My home came with it. So as part of the purchase, never had one before. So I feel like the city was obligated to look at this and looking at how can we improve safety, because people are burning now because they want this type of activity, but they could be burning wet wood, they could be burning without the appropriate fire pit. Digging a hole and putting rocks around it like a campground is not a fire pit. So I think those were some regulations that I thought were important to look at and to see how we can improve. I think definitely received letters for and against, increase or allowing fire pits, and I think the public nuisance and the public safety are valid points brought to my attention, but I think this ordinance addresses those. And based off of the conversation I had with the mayor about the Beverly Hills, that there wasn't a massive increase in fire pit use after the change in the ordinance. So I tend to be leaning towards a yes vote as well at this time.
Thank you. And, Councilman Galloway.
Well, while I was originally supportive of this, everybody likes to sit around a campfire. That's why I go camping. As I thought about it more, I think this does nothing but encourage people to have more fires in their backyard, which I can't disagree is a nice thing, but it has potential to create, smoke, a lot of smoke at the ground level. We have small lots. I don't think we're going to be doing site plan analysis for where these fire pits are located. Most of the chimeneas and things you can buy at Home Depot are mobile. So although someone can say that they're going to keep it away from structures or lot lines, I don't think in reality that's going to happen. I think what we're doing is encouraging people to have these backyard fires. We're making it more difficult to determine when it's to enforce and when not to enforce. To me, it seems like we're putting a greater burden on the fire department by not having a zero tolerance for this. And, finally, I think it's just the nuisance and the subjective standard there is opening us up to a whole new line of citizens complaining about their neighbors, similar to the noise ordinance that we had. It's a very subjective standard, and what may be a nuisance to one person may not be reasonable, but I think people have a right to live in their backyard free from what they perceive to be health risks, whether or not their neighbor, the police department, or fire department do. So I just don't see, I see entertainment value versus health concerns, and because of that, I've got to come down on no on this.
I guess I'll weigh in. I did have several conversations with neighboring communities. I discovered that open burning is allowed in our two neighboring communities of Hazel Park and Oak Park, and I sort of investigated what kinds of nuisances they've had, and they've been relatively few, not that they haven't had any, but they handle it through the sort of the nuisance part in here. So I feel comfortable that because you've specifically cited that a nuisance to a neighbor is something that we could use to go in and shut these down, that it actually gives us greater, there's a greater structure here to go in and make that kind of a claim. So I think it would actually increase. Neither of those communities had this sort of ordinance. By the way, I commend you. I think there's a lot of good things in this ordinance, and maybe the most important of which is the types of things that you can't burn, and that'll take some education of our residents. But if you don't burn the stuff that you can't burn and you follow these rules, which I know our fire department will enforce very well, I think that it simply acknowledges, I don't know that it'll encourage it or not, Councilman Galloway, I mean, that's a fair point, but I think the reality is it's happening anyway, and so I think that's why the chief brought it to us in the first place, because despite our prohibition, it's going on, and so this allows us mechanisms to control that. I think the nuisance, the fact that it's a reasonable standard, I mean, this is common sense, and so reasonable to me as a non-lawyer means just, practice common sense. If you're interfering with your neighbor's right to enjoy their property, then you ought to call the police, and you ought to have them come and take a look at that, and we would take that seriously. So I think that's in there. And so, and then, of course, we keep mentioning Beverly Hills, but that's the one I found that was really sort of the model, but incorporated all of the things that you folks did. And so I think the last point, as the chief said, is we could revisit this if this becomes just out of control and he finds that it burdens his department. But because it's the chief coming and telling us that he thinks that ultimately it'll be less of a burden on his department, I'm willing to try this ordinance and see how it works in the city.
We can revisit it at any time we want.
Yes.
It doesn't be a problem.
I guess I would want to weigh in and say I was actually more strongly in favor of this ordinance than I am now, hearing many of the concerns. I think the key to this is going to be education, because I think you're correct, Mayor, when you say that many of the concerns of how to report a nuisance, it's structured in here about how to do that. People need to understand they have the right to do that and how they follow through on those. So how you implement this ordinance, should we pass it, is critical, and how you get that word out so folks know and can address it. I would really prefer to see, and the ordinance talks about publishing in the paper, but I'd like to see as aggressive an education plan as possible to make sure people are armed and prepared so we don't have the issues with health and other things that are out there. And I am very concerned about that component of it. So should we pass it, I'd encourage a very aggressive education campaign on what's acceptable and what's not. I'm a little concerned about the $25 as well. That it seems high to me, but I think we need to evaluate that as we go forward and see if we're overcharging or not.
And Chief, on that point, I meant to bring that up. That's an annual fee. Would you be? I mean, it seems to me once you go out there and look at it and inspect it, you're not going to do that annually. Would you be comfortable with a one-time $25 fee as opposed to an annual fee?
Yes, Your Honor. That was just kind of a grab off of other ordinances and permits. It wasn't.
Okay.
It didn't have a mathematical sensibility to it.
Gotcha. So I personally would be more comfortable with a one-time $25 fee, inspection fee, permit fee, permit fee, I guess, technically, as opposed to an annual fee.
I would support that. I think it's more reasonable.
Yeah. Other comments, questions of council?
So do we need to offer an amendment to change that?
Yeah. And I guess I can't make motions. Can I make amendments? Dan? No, okay, I can't do either one, but I would.
Excuse me, is the fee included in the ordinance?
It is.
Yeah.
So should we refer that to, I mean, should we reference, fee schedule for the city in general so that we don't have to keep changing the ordinance?
Great idea.
To an amount to be determined as laid forth, set forth in the schedule of fees?
Mm-hmm. Oh. You already made the motion, the amendment. So would you, I know you're not in favor of the motion, but you could still help us with the amendment. Would you say that again, Councilman Galloway?
Perhaps then a friendly amendment offered by somebody other than myself might be to, let's see.
I've got it here. I'd offer a friendly amendment to amend section 9-56, burning permits, to change the language where it says, the fee for a one-time burning permit shall be $25 or as reflected by the city fee schedule.
All right. You made the original
Yes,
motion. Is that friendly to you, Councilman Lennon?
That's more friendly.
All right. Any further discussion on this item? Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
This is on the amendment?
Oh, on the, well, okay, yes. Dan is telling me yes.
Council members Lennon?
Yes.
Galloway?
No.
Martin?
Yes.
Piana?
Yes.
Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you. So the amendment is adopted. Now on to the main motion. Would you call the roll on the main motion as amended?
Council members Galloway?
No.
Martin?
Yes.
Piana?
Yes.
Lennon?
Yes.
Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you. That item is adopted. Next item on our agenda is call to council. Fire Chief Sullivan, you've talked a lot tonight, but anything else from the fire department this evening?
Not at this time,
All right, thank you. Chief Collins, anything from the police department? Thank you. From DPW, Lloyd, anything from the DPW department this evening? Come up here just because the folks at home won't be able to hear you from back there. That's okay.
I had the opportunity to attend my first meeting with the 8 Mile Boulevard Association, and I was pleased to receive an award for the city of Ferndale for the beautification along Lindsay Lane where the medium is well kept, landscaped, and so I just thought I'd pass it along to you and let you know.
Thank you. Thank you.
I was supposed to bring the plaque and I forgot.
April.
Jill, I think Jill from the Recreation Department, anything going on in recreation this week?
One tiny little event coming up.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Coming up this Saturday is the annual Hilton Fall Festival presented by Garden Fresh Gourmet. The event is from 10 to 5 along Hilton Road between Drayton and Sylvan. Some highlights include hay rides, pony rides, face painting, carnival games, costume contest, arts and crafts fair, inflatable obstacle course, rock climbing wall, and lots more fun activities. This year, participants can purchase a all-inclusive wristband for $5, and that gets you into all the activities you can participate and in everything for the day. And we also will be having individual activity tickets for $1 to $2 if you only want to do a couple things. So you have those two options. So we're looking forward to a great day, so I encourage everyone to come on out. Coming up next Thursday, which seems to be a very popular day for events, the 18th is our annual spaghetti dinner from 5 to 7 at the Kulik Center. This is all-you-can-eat spaghetti buffet with salad and breadsticks. It is $6 per person, ages 55 and older, $5, and kids 3 and under will eat for free, and all proceeds benefit our wonderful seniors.
Great.
What time does that start?
5 o'clock.
I've been there before. Those
5 or
seniors
6?
who cook some
5 to 7.
Mean spaghetti, right?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
I get a discount this year, too.
Cheryl, anything from the clerk's office this evening? I'm guessing there might be.
We have a small event looming as well. Tomorrow is the deadline to be registered to vote for the November election. I cannot stress strongly enough, please go to www.michigan.gov/vote. Make sure you're registered. I have already had a handful of people in the last few days who thought they were registered, thought they mailed something in, we didn't receive it. Please check, because after tomorrow, it's too late, and you're not going to be able to vote in November. You can register at any Secretary of State branch office, or you can come into City Hall tomorrow. We're here from 8 until 5:30 to register to vote. And just an update on the citizenship question that has been an issue in the press. The federal court has issued an injunction preventing the question of are you a U.S. citizen from being included on the applications for ballots. It does not change the law. You still have to be a citizen to vote. You must answer that question when you register to vote, but you will no longer be asked to answer that question again in order to receive a ballot.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Through the chair, Madam Clerk, a couple of years ago, you did a registration drive at the high school. Have we done anything, was it?
We have not done a registration drive this year, and again, this is why I'm encouraging people to check that they're registered, because other groups have done registration drives, third-party groups who are not election administrators. And I've had several Ferndale High School students come in who said they registered to vote at the high school. We never received their registrations. There's a couple other groups out there who people have come in and said, I registered with someone on the street in Detroit. We never received their registrations. Please, please, please double check that you're registered to vote.
Thank you.
Very good. Thanks. City Manager, anything this evening?
I do. Actually, I'm going to start with some wellness activities. I'm going to bring Jenny forward to talk a little bit of an update on where we are with some wellness, and then I have a few things after that.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I apologize. I have a little bit of a cold, so if you can't hear me, let me know. Two really exciting things that I'm bringing to you tonight. One of them is we just left our 4th week with Weight Watchers. As you know, Council was involved in making the decision to bring that program to our staff as a weight loss management tool. And I'm proud to say that as of last week, we have lost almost collectively 200 pounds amongst about 17 employees in about 4 weeks. So we have a strong momentum going. We're going to be looking at pushing forward and possibly continuing this when this 12-week session is up. Our staff are energized. It's kind of the buzz here right now as far as increasing morale, and just everyone's kind of talking and considering different things when they're bringing things to meetings, food and that type of thing. So we're proud of that. And the other thing is we've solidified with the fire department to administer flu shots to our employees this year for free. Typically, if an employee were to go to a healthcare provider to obtain a flu shot, as you know, we're self-funded. It probably costs the city anywhere between, I'd say, about $75 and $100. And we've solidified pricing for the fire department to provide those for us for about $2, a little over $2, a little less than $2 a shot. So we'll be offering those to our employees here in the next coming weeks as well. So, any questions?
I mean, I just want to say, I love the fact that the programs they're well received by the employees, and I hear what you're saying about employee morale, which is wonderful because it's been a tough few years for our employees. But the longer-term benefits are really exciting, because I think the studies show that as our employees get healthier, we are self-insured. It does bring our costs down overall. So it's a feel-good now, but it's also, I think, a long-term investment that's paying off too. So congratulations on all the success.
Sure, thank you. And our goal as well is to provide some of that data. We're creating some benchmarks now to be able to hopefully in a couple of years say that we can see a trend in some of those costs coming down. So thank you.
Great. Thanks, Jenny.
A couple other things. Just want to let you know that staff did turn in the EVIP requirements for phase number 1. It's the same as last year. There's 3 different phases. The first phase is making sure your financials are up to date on your website. We do use Munitrex as a way for residents to look on and see different ways of charting and things, however they want to look at that data. So it's not just numbers, but there's charts and things of that nature. The second phase is we'll need to update where we are with collaboration. And phase 3, as it was last year, will be employee compensation, making sure we're following the trends that the state has indicated are benchmarks. So we will be doing that. But the first phase was turned in on time, which I believe with that is about $900,000, or it's one third of the $900,000 that we'll be receiving this year, so $300,000 will come our way in state trip revenue. So we did meet that deadline. A couple of events are coming up that I want to talk just a little bit about very briefly. Is we're working right now, speaking of collaboration, with the Woodward 5, which are the 5 communities along Woodward, regarding a sustainability grant. And it's quite a large undertaking, and we're working with the county on this to take a look at sustainability, environmental, not only just environmental, but other sustainability, such as, tracking, our park systems and things of that nature. And that is, again, with 5 communities, so it's trying to work together as a team has been great, but it's also bringing in some challenges as well because we have so many different things happening with each community. But what we want to do, too, is not lose sight of the fact that the county, as they're facilitating this grant, is trying to encourage community participation as well. So the first event that we had is for the community, or the second event, actually. We've already had one community-wide event. This is the second one regarding this grant, which will be held at the Pleasant Ridge Community Center on October 11th from 6 to 8. So anybody who's interested in providing their input on some sustainability measures they would like to see the Woodward 5 focus on, that would be their opportunity to come and provide their input. Again, that's from 6 to 8 at the Pleasant Ridge Community Center. Then there's another meeting which is supposed to be for council and planning commissions of these 5 communities, which is on October 25th at the Kulik Center from 6 to 8 with the same opportunity to kind of talk about where we are with the grant, to provide input. So the county is doing an outstanding job of trying to gather a lot of people with a lot of different priorities in this grant process, and we're hoping, I believe, to close the measures in February, if I'm not mistaken, and then we'll be able to track those from this day forward. So there's pages and pages of data that we'll be collecting as a group. So again, it's another tool for collaboration, and hopefully out of that, some plans of action might come out of some of the consistent messages that we have regarding sustainability. So we encourage anybody who can attend those meetings. I also want to make sure that council gets on their calendar the Chamber Gala, which is on November 8th. And I'll give you more information as that comes along, but put that in your calendar. And again, a friendly reminder to piggyback again on the fire department. I know that we've been encouraging our employees to participate in the cause for breast cancer. And if you guys are interested in a T-shirt, please let me know, and I'll ensure that you get one as well. And
I need Chief Sullivan's size.
Okay. Yeah, and so that's what we'll get with. So send me an email or whatever. I'll make sure. But I think that's it. That's all I have for today.
Great.
A lot of dates to write down.
Well, you know what, and not to add to your plate, but do you want to give a brief summary of where we are with Polar Environmental and what we can expect coming out of the public hearing that happened?
We had
attended?
Yep. Last week was a public hearing regarding their permit. They actually extended the time to October 5th for people could email and or use the internet or call to bring forward their comments. So right now what they are doing is taking all of the comments that were made in writing and in person and are going to take each of those comments and make sure that they've been addressed. So that will take probably the next 30 days and come back and make their final determination. So their intent was to make sure that all concerns were heard and addressed. So they kind of take them out of never assume that they've covered everything, so they wanted to make sure. So I would imagine in November we'll have a final determination on where the status of that permitting is.
Thank you. Thank you. Dan, anything?
One item, the 43rd District Court has asked that the city take a look at its 1- and 2-family dwelling rental registration requirement, which currently would preclude a property owner from filing any type of summary proceedings with respect to the property without the license for its registration license being issued. And so I will be trying to meet with the ordinance committee to go over the concerns expressed by the court and apparently the state court administrative's office, SCAO, with the goal of hopefully coming up with an ordinance amendment to address the court's concerns.
Good. Thank you, Dan. Councilman Martin.
Just a couple things. City Manager Lynch and I just got back from the annual Michigan Municipal League Conference, so I want to thank you for sending us there. It was terrific. There were great sessions on tapping into regional and global resources, community development design, a lot of work on art and art districts like we're potentially looking at in Livernois, and development, as well as sessions on civic engagement and social entrepreneurism. And so it was terrific, great education opportunity, great networking, and I'll be passing those materials on shortly. The other thing I want to promote, there's a ton of events going on. I had the spaghetti dinner on my list, but Joe beat me to it. But once you're done eating spaghetti and going to Fido Does Ferndale, on the 21st, Ferndale Youth Assistance is having its annual bowl-a-thon fundraiser on October 21st. You can contact Youth Assistance. They're looking for sponsors. They're looking for teams. Perhaps the city wants to put a bowling team together. It's only 5 people, right? But Ferndale Youth Assistance does tremendous work with our area youth in the school district, and very proud to serve on that board. And so I encourage all of you to put on your shoes and go bowling for a great cause. So,
What time is the bowling event?
I believe it starts at 1.
Excellent, thank you. Councilman Lennon.
A couple days ago, Councilman Martin and I were able to attend the so-called Hanging with the Heroes event.
Yeah.
And I just want to say thank you to the Ferndale Elks, the Legion, the VFW, everybody that participated. Put that event on for Tom Ducharme, Ferndale resident who received the Purple Heart 42 years later. Well-deserved, so I want to say thank you. April and Dan went to Mackinac, and all I got was this fudge. But we ate Dan's already, so you know. And the apple of my eye, my daughter Tara, turns 26 on Wednesday. I'm showing my age, but I want to say happy birthday, Tara. We'll make it a special day.
Excellent.
Okay.
That's great. 26.
Yeah.
You had her young.
Very right. About 12, yeah.
All right. Mayor Pro Tem Piana.
Yes, I posted on my Facebook page this past week, but I wanted to announce it. But there is a great resource to help people learn more about the referendum and ballot issues coming up on November 3rd. A nonprofit, nonpartisan research group called the Citizens Research Council of Michigan has an excellent resource online, analysis of ballot issues, and you can go to crcmich.org, that's crcmich.org, and on their homepage, just click on the link that says analysis of ballot issues, and you'll be able to see a white paper, a PowerPoint, and what the actual 100-word description is on the ballot, because that's a question I'm getting from my friends of, like, what is the wording on the ballot, and what does a yes-no vote actually mean. So I hope everybody takes a look at that and then seek out opinions on this non-opinionated, fact-based analysis. And I just wanted to follow up with the sustainability plan between the Woodward Five. A couple months ago, Joe, Dan Martin, and I participated in the Michigan Green Communities Leadership Academy, so I'm interested in seeing what is the outcome of the sustainability planning and how it relates to what we've learned and our visions for taking Ferndale forward with a green or a sustainable vision. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilman Galloway.
Just a couple things. The clerk mentioned about make sure you're registered to vote, but you can also, if you're not going to be in town that week, get your absentee voter ballot, I think right up until 3 days before?
Actually, you can get it the day before the election as long as you come in person to the clerk's office and vote your ballot in person.
So no reason to not vote, even if you're not going to be in town or you have other issues. There's a half dozen of them that you can use as reasons to get an absentee ballot. Earlier this evening, we met as a special group to look at the branding of Ferndale, and I think that's coming along really nicely. That's going to be rolled out here in the next few weeks, and our CDS director has done a great job of recruiting companies in from all across the country. We continue to get lots of inquiries from the East Coast, the West Coast, and everything in between. I think the new logo and design for our city's marketing materials is going to really just accelerate that. So I'm excited to roll that out as well. That's it for me this evening.
Well, thank you. There's so much going on that you've all covered it, so I have nothing left. With that, meeting adjourned. Wait, except for the fact that we have to go in closed session.
I move that we go into closed session to consult with attorney regarding trial or settlement strategy in connection with specific pending litigation pursuant to MCL 15.268E of the Open Meetings Act.
All right. That's moved by Lennon and supported by Martin. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Councilmembers Martin?
Yes.
Piana?
Yes.
Lennon?
Yes.
Galloway?
Yes.
Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you, and we are adjourned.
We take 5?
Yes. Oh.